Hey, deserving listeners, love is blind. Let's see what happens.
Honestly, the whole scenario just caught me completely off guard. I think my reaction was because it hurt really bad.
Okay, so that's a good opener. He is initiating conversation the next day. He says they haven't really talked about it much after they had the fight of him crying in the closet, and he leads well by saying he was hurt, which is wonderful. Now, who knows what he's going to say after this point, but if everyone can start a make-up conversation or a clarifying or a post-conflict reunification conversation with "I was hurt," then so much conflict would be solved much quicker.
I feel like I put my best efforts in every day with you. And I felt really unappreciated.
Okay. Yeah. We don't know what was actually going on behind the scenes, but I think that it is possible that that is a reasonable statement, that he is saying he feels he was hurt, he feels underappreciated because I've been putting a lot of effort into the relationship, and you basically said I haven't been putting any effort into the relationship, and you were hurtful. You know, it'd be one thing if she came to him and said, "Hey, I just want to tell you that my feelings are hurt because you in the pod said you were going to do all these nice romantic things and you haven't done any of those things." I think we would have seen a much different conversation, but that's not what happened. You know, it seemed like, I guess in review of the conversation, you know, because it all started with him bringing up, they got back from the party and he brought up Johnny, and she's like, "Why are you talking about Johnny?" And he was always on his heels, and then eventually she's like, there was like several rapid fire criticisms that were not delivered in any sort of warm or even respectful manner or caring. You know, you can be critical and you can voice your concerns, but you can also do so in a way that at least has the appearance that you care about the other person's feelings. You know, she just seemed like she was just talking to this stranger on the bus or something. Like, you know, "You smell," or "Your feet disgust me," or I don't know. It's just kind of the way it looks. So anyway, he's saying that. Now, we'll see what she says. Maybe she'll deliver in this moment, rise to the occasion. "Yeah, I was upset," or, "Well, I actually don't feel like I was being mean to you. I feel like you still haven't done these." You know, let's see what she says.
I think that the things that I do, I really want reciprocated. Like, I do take time out of the day to do something for you, have something set up for you, whatever it is. Like, I think about those things.
Okay. And we'll take her word for it, I guess. It's possible that she hasn't done that much. It's possible that she has. She has said she cooked for him a couple times, so there's that. And her tone is different today. It's more in that zone of positive or constructive conversation. But if they were in my office and I had a good enough relationship with them, I would have prompted her, perhaps, depends, but I would slow her down. I'd be like, "Okay, that's great that you're bringing it up. Basically, what you're saying right now is that you're disagreeing with his claim that he feels as though you aren't appreciating him and he's hurt. You're countering that. And you can absolutely bring that up in a bit, but let's go step by step, because you risk alienating or hurting him more. You don't have to agree with the other person's point of view to also love your partner. And so let's go one step at a time. You'll appreciate it when I interrupt him in the future. So can you reflect at the very least what he said? And at best, if you can empathize and understand how he came to that conclusion. And then she could have said, "Okay, yeah, okay, you're hurt that I I wasn't appreciating the effort that you're putting in. And then, people might be able to do a little bit of that, but then they'll go, but I'm like, hold on, let's just live in this space here for a little. Let's just live here where someone says something vulnerable and healthy, like the way he did, and you hear it and accept it and understand it, maybe even give a little bit of a paragraph of how you understand. There's a lot of time. If you're going to spend the rest of your lives together, you have literally the rest of your lives to have these conversations. You don't have to rush it. So let's take one step at a time. Now, for some people, the anxiety and the attachment insecurity is so overwhelming. And for a lot of clients, it is this way. They can't handle this level of differentiation. For them to not be able to defend themselves, it creates such an anxiety for them that they can't do it. It seems so easy, right? The way I'm describing it, it seems like, well, yeah, if a therapist is there helping, it seems like, well, of course, you'd go along with it. The majority of clients that I work with have a really hard time even beginning to go there. It might take me, I'm not even joking. I'm saying this not to denigrate my clients. I'm saying this to highlight how hard this is for people and how little we work on this and how few moments if any, there are of instruction around this and modeling about this. The shirt I have where if being healthy is if it's corny to be healthy, then I might as well be corny. I don't even know my own phrases, but, I used to have this phrase that I would tell clients because they'd say, well, it's kind of corny to say that. And I'd say, well, if being healthy means being corny, then be corny. That's what it is. Once I put myself in my therapist's shoes, I can actually say it. So it's really hard for people to do that. And anyway, so a paragraph from her, I have an itch, and she could say, even though in her mind she's thinking that is, I don't understand where he is coming from. Also, there's another side of the story, which is I have been giving a lot, and the fact that he feels hurt by the truth that I'm pointing out that I give and he doesn't give is wrong. But if you're trying to build a relationship, which I don't know if she is, then you gotta, take it one step at a time. So she could say, I understand that you're hurt. Thanks for telling me. I'm sorry that you're hurt. I don't want you to feel hurt. You're telling me that you're hurt because you feel like I was underappreciating you, and that's understandable given what I was saying. Maybe I was being too definitive in my statements. I think I might have basically said that you don't do anything for me, and of course that's not true. There are things that I would like you to do, but there are things that you do, and maybe there's a reason why you don't do those things, but it has been on my mind. But yeah, I understand that that's how you feel. You're hurt by that, and I'm sorry about that. I could have said it differently. And so are we good on that? And you stop there as long as that has been fully validated, and sometimes that's all it takes. And then you start a new paragraph, which is, I would like to introduce the topic that I feel like I've been giving a lot and you haven't been giving. I'm hurt. And that's what I was trying to communicate last night. Then you can start with that. But at the very least, her tone is more caring today. She's not as dismissive. Her facial expression, her tone, her rolling of her eyes last night, I don't know, it was very dismissive.
Like, I do take time out of the day to do something for you, have something set up for you, whatever it is. Like, I think about those things even when I'm tired, and I'm like, it would be nice if he did that for me and I didn't have to worry about doing this.
Okay, so that's nice, and we'll see how he responds. Now, she didn't validate him, so if we're in a zone where it's less destructive and not very constructive, then he will defend as well instead of validate. But I don't know, he's capable of validating. But let's see. It's important for us to understand this because in conflict, the ability to analyze what we are dealing with and particularly what we're doing, our behavior during a conflict, the types of statements we make, if we can categorize them, it's sort of like being able to categorize verb and noun and adverb. The ability to analyze that gives us power over it, right? And the ability to label something as defensive versus validating or critical or contemptuous or stonewalling or constructive versus destructive, because it can feel like this feels like a good conversation, but it's still hurting. It's just maybe hurting less because they're more differentiated in this moment. He's not as drunk or something. But now I will say that you can validate without overtly validating. Sometimes you don't have to necessarily overtly, but it doesn't hurt too overtly validate, right? It's like better safe than sorry is the thing.
Dinner or whatever.
And like, trust me, I do like to cook, and I would do it for you.
I know, but like my thing is we don't have.
Okay, so he provided a defensive statement. They edited that, so I don't know if they took something out, but he has this defeated look to him when he talks to Stacy sometimes that, we've seen this look many times where he's just like, ugh. And I think that's him succumbing and accommodating, but I don't think he's happy about it is the thing. I think he's telling himself to lower his head and succumb, but it doesn't feel good. It's not a happy experience, but it's a giving up or a understanding that he is worthless or something. I don't know. So he's like, believe me, I do want to cook for you. And yeah, that doesn't really address what she was saying. He said at another point that he wakes up before she does and gets home after she does. And you just imagine that you might not be in the mood to cook. And it's hard to imagine all the things that he has to do beyond working and her, but it's possible that there's all sorts of things that he has to do that interfere with his time. I don't know. I'll also throw out the possibility that he's working his ass off because he's trying to buy her first class tickets. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, he might have thought this is the best thing I can do is to demonstrate to her how hard of a worker I am. I don't know. At the very least, I don't know, maybe they'll pull themselves out. If I were there, I'd be like, okay, what is your perfect situation, Stacy? Okay, so it sounds like you would like him to do these things. Okay, so for you, Izzy, how do you feel about that? I think Izzy feels attacked, so he'd be like, I totally. So I might have to be like, yeah, okay, totally get that. Just moving forward into the future, now that you know this, is it possible to do that? Can you try? And he'd be like, yeah, I could totally try. Yeah, okay, you don't have to. It's fine. And then I might say, okay, because to give a lot of couple therapy during conflict is me engineering them giving and then receiving and giving and receiving so that they can sort of build something because there's so much torn down during conflict. So in that moment, Stacy is bidding for something to be given to her about, well, can you at least give this to me in the future, but also in this moment, can you just acknowledge that I want that and that for whatever reason you didn't do it in the past, but you're going to try to do it in the future. That's a gift right now. And then we have that gift, it's received, and then I would turn to him and I would facilitate something that she can give to him in that moment. Like, okay, so he could say, yeah, I'll totally try to do that in the future. I didn't know you wanted that, but I'll try to do that more. And then she's like, thank you. And then I probably would likely engineer collaboratively with him that what he wants is an apology or some warmth regarding what had happened the night before, some appreciation, that although he wasn't doing the things exactly what she wanted, that it's clear that he's trying, that he is thinking about the relationship and he is trying to be a good partner, and for him to express that, and he did last night, and that Stacy can actually appreciate that and really love it. I mean, that's the golden egg. That's the holy grail, right? In a relationship is that you have a partner that thinks about you and is valuing you and trying to please you, is trying to do the right thing by you. And if something's going wrong there, but if the energy is there, then you just have to point the energy in the right direction, right?
I have a lot of time, and so these are the things that I want to make sure, like, is he like that? Is he the guy that he tells me he is? Or I'm trying to figure that out.
I understand, like, I hear you out. I get what you want. I get what you need. But, like, the things that I have done is just, like, going unrecognized because you're just so focused on, like, what I'm not doing for you. So it's like, yeah, I know.
We heard that he had a halfway validating statement at first. He's like, yeah, I totally get that you want that. And I feel underappreciated. So that's in the direction of first things first, right? Of validating. He could have done more. He could have been like, okay, I totally hear you. You want me to do those things. And duly noted. I have the energy. I want to please you, and I will point it in that direction. And thank you for telling me, because I do want you to be happy as a partner. And I feel underappreciated for the things that I have done based on the things you were saying last night.
Maybe lacking on some parts that I can easily fix. But then last night with all that, like I felt like all my work just meant nothing.
I mean, I don't feel that way. I'm not saying that that's not how you felt. I do appreciate the things that you do for me.
Okay. She's hearing it, and she's now, so this is what she could have said last night. And it would have made all the difference. And she must have been in a particularly hurt place. And I wonder if it has to do with insecurity about being abandoned and the threat of Johnny, right? So, wow, such a contrast between this. So that's good. And it's interesting how in that moment, as she was starting to agree with him, he was almost, it sounded like he was about to step in and save her, because he is so accommodating, which can backfire in that situation, because she was actually responding well to him. And then she was like, no, and forged ahead.
Recognize them.
I'm doing my best. Like today, I was still upset and hurt. And I still managed to suck it up and let you know that I'm still here.
Yeah, that says a lot. And he's being really healthy, and she's following suit. So do they have a chance? I guess they do. Yeah, I mean, people get intoxicated and riled up because of a past fling like Johnny, and you have a flare up and then you recover.
So I love you. I just need a little more of that from you.
Okay. I think I know what he's saying. I don't know if Stacy does, though, but I think what he's saying is, I want warmth and affection and expressions of love or reassurance or something. And now she's staring into the distance. So let's see what she says.
I love and chose you because of how you've been in the last 10, 15 minutes. You're so calming and reassuring and open.
Okay. Very encouraging. Hand holding. It seems like she will interpret, like if it's the everyday grind and there's no effort from him, or there's seemingly, there's a distance that maybe particularly in the beginning of a relationship, she interprets it as he doesn't love me or he's disrespecting me or something. And then she goes to her protective place of disdain, really. And then when he is being this way, which I think he was kind of being this way last night in a sense, but in this moment she can receive it, and she is reassured, and it allows her to open up and reciprocate in this way. And yeah, there's a vulnerability there, of course, because in long-term relationships, there are moments, stretches of time, particularly if both people are working outside the house, that there's inherent distance, which is pretty awful to think about. It's a strain. One of the nice things about the pandemic for me and my wife is that, long story short, our lives, our careers drastically changed through the pandemic and after, such that we're basically always home, the two of us, 24/7. And, we work together, and I just actually took a break and was talking with her and hugging her and playing with the dogs. And it has improved our relationship because there's this felt sense that we're together, and there's closeness and a lot more opportunity to have affection and to share things. And there's a lot of strain also on your life when you're commuting and working in offices and all that kind of, not inherently, but I know for some couples, they like that getting away from each other, and they don't like to be on top of each other all the time. But my point is that for the two of them, there's a vulnerability moving forward that they would do well to address if they in fact decide to be together. But I don't know. I still think Stacy is she's got like at least 8 toes out of the door, But when I see scenes like this, then I wonder, maybe not.
That there's nothing that I couldn't say to you, good and bad, but it's more the good. Like, I don't talk to guys how I talk to you. I'm not open like that. And I chose you because you bring that out in me.
That's interesting, because I was suspecting that mode she goes into of the tough girl is a very comfortable place for her to be, and it's been one she's had to rely on for a lot of very rational reasons in the past, probably going back to when she was young. I'm just going to take a guess. And she says with other men, she is more of that way, of the tough girl. And because I keep wondering, the way she treats him when she's ridiculing about the way he is and the classism she exhibits, I wonder if the style of relationships that she's engineered in the past, given her tough girl ways, I don't know, but we could imagine that she goes on dates and she's meeting people that she has met an Izzy before in the past, but because she is the way that she is, the Izzies of the world either annoy her or they leave her because of the tough girl that she is relying on. And then when someone comes around that is more sexist and has lived a life of privilege to be able to exhibit sexism with women, and they feel like they can buy women or control those things, then they come on the scene, and we can imagine her being in those circles, right? And they date her, and in those relationships, at least they go kind of well, enough that they don't die on the vine in the first week. But in those relationships, they have a lot of money, and they're paying for a lot of things. They're never going Dutch. It's never 50-50, but there's a price to pay, right? There's a distance there that kind of works, but she is at least getting some of her needs met. And then when Izzy comes along, she's just like, the best relationships I've been in have always been like this, and you're different. You earn less than I do, and you're not a go-getter, and you have paper plates in your place, and you can't afford $20,000 to pay for an air conditioning system, and it doesn't feel right to her. But then when these things happen, she's like, oh, this actually is new to me, that he draws me out. And that can work for people, but there's a risk there because it requires him to lead the way and initiate things. There's a possibility that if they keep going down this road and she doesn't learn to also initiate, that he'll get weary and burnt out and give up eventually. They'll have a fight where she's being mean to him again, and he wakes up the next day and it's like, I can't do it anymore. I can't carry the weight of this relationship. I'm not her therapist, and I don't want to be always the differentiated, nice one that bridges the gap and pulls her out of her shell like she's a grown woman. It's not my responsibility. What about me? When does she reach out to me and initiate things with me and pull me out of my shell? Why do I always have to be the adult here? So, there's a huge risk there, but it can work, especially if she works on that and they keep working on that. But another point that I want to make is that so often on these shows, these conflicts will cascade and spin out of control. And I'm always harping and ranting about how if someone just led with their pain, then things typically go better. And that's what he's doing. I had no hope for this conversation given how things went the night before. But the fact that he led with his pain and his hurt drew her out, as she's saying right now. And she might even in this moment feel like, oh, I'm feeling in love with him again. I haven't felt in love with him for a couple of weeks because we haven't had moments like vulnerability bonds people together. And he did it really well. I mean, there was some nitpicking that I could have, but he started off with his pain and they had some bit of resolution, but then he returns to, I still feel unappreciated. But I'm basically asking you, can you please appreciate me, that I have value in the world? And then she delivered, and it's a beautiful thing.
And I didn't even know that was there. I hate that I made you sad. I hate that I made you sad.
It's cool. Happens.
It's cool.
Wait, what did she say? She was whispering something. What'd she say?
I hate that I made you sad. Ethan, I wish you're sad.
Sad. So it's a baby voice. That's cute. So she's being very sweet right now. Whispering, I hate that I made you sad. When they're whispering like this, I think it feels more intimate because they know they're being filmed, right? So I think she might be trying to be more just the two of them, even though they have lapel mics, right? So yeah, that's really sweet. It brings a tear to my eye, honestly. I don't want to get my hopes up, but what a swing. What a swing. It just goes to show you that I have always told myself that I have no idea about the viability of a relationship. Things can change quickly. People can make choices. Things can be built back up. People can fall back in love with each other. And any conclusion that I make, because early in my career, I was like a lay person in that couples would come into my office and I would start wondering if some of these couples, maybe like 10, 20% were doomed and there was just no chance and they probably should break up. I would never say that to them because that's not the role of the therapist. I knew that much, but I would think it. And over time, I would learn that even that thought was ridiculous and it was harmful for me to even contemplate the question and to have the arrogance to believe that I could answer that question because it would affect the way that I treated the couple. And so I disabused myself of a number of those notions early on in my career, 20 years ago. And it is always panned out that it's better for me to assume I don't know and there's no way for me to know. Even if I knew every detail, I still wouldn't know because the motivation that the two of them are motivated, they're making choices right now and they're motivated by something, or they are calculating a choice, or they are having an emotion that compels them to do what they're doing right now. And there's no way to know where that comes from. Where does that come from? Where does that choice come from? How did that motivation happen? How do we always return there? And will it always return? It's impossible to know, to the point where I can see a couple that is extremely toxic, like 100 times more toxic. I don't even say if I would say they're toxic, but more conflictual than them. And it'll be really hard to imagine that they would want to be together and that they could have moments like this, and yet it can happen. And so I always just say, I don't know. And also I have hope, as long as couples are coming into my office and asking me to help them with their relationship, and they tell me that they want to improve their relationship, they have at least some shred of hope. Sometimes people only have 1% hope. They will say that to me. It's like, when they get that low, it's hard to recover from. But, say they're at the 10% mark, they're only 10% in the relationship. There's always a possibility, and I will sometimes say this in these reaction videos, that it's never hopeless with these kind of relationships. That doesn't mean you're supposed to try. You can absolutely calculate, I don't want to be with that person for whatever reason, particularly if they're abusive to you, right? Couples will come to me, or I'll have friends that will talk about how it's doomed, right? They'll say it's doomed. There's no chance here. People email in, me and my partner, da-da-da. It's like, there's no chance. And I'll say, look, it's a choice that you have to make, and there's no logical way of evaluating that choice. We want logic. We want a clear answer. Should I stay or should I go? There's no way to know. It just comes from within you. You either want to work on it. Things, so often I'll be talking with someone and they'll just be like, yeah, or I'll be hearing people on these shows. They're just like, yeah, this is doomed. There's just no way. Look at him. This is just never going to work. And I'm always thinking, no, that there's always a way. Everyone has to make choices to go down that road, and your partner might not make those choices, and then you have a choice to make for yourself. But if everyone makes choices to go down that road, it can get better. I've worked with people that are severe. They have severe narcissistic personality disorder, which is a thing. Let me tell you, it is a thing, and it's nothing like the way it's described on the internet. Generally speaking, it is problematic, where you have a partner that is lecturing at you for 4 hours a night about all sorts of things and a lot of attacks, and there's a lot of disdain and rage from your partner that has severe narcissistic personality disorder, a lot of distortions in their mind, a lot of desperation, a lot of insecurity. And I have worked with couples and individuals, and we slog through a lot of therapy, and over the span of 10 years, things are 50 to 70% better. And there are different phases of that I could describe to you that are kind of typical. But the point is that you can have someone that is like extremely problematic, and yet it can still work if that person makes choices to get better. You can't guarantee that people are going to make those choices, though. Anyway, point is that if everyone is willing to make the choice, then in my book, there's always hope. And they seem to be making the choice, so there is hope.
It's cool. Happens.
It's cool.
I honestly didn't want to get that way, but I just kind of lost it. But we're good.
Like I love you.
Yeah.
I may fold.
So she has this baby talk. Now, briefly, I will say that that can be great, and it's very touching, like full stop. And when people baby talk, if it's consistent and all the time, it can be a way of avoiding vulnerability.
You know, I'm proud of myself to like be able to tell her I'm still here for you. I'm glad that I can actually voice my feelings and actually feel heard.
Yeah, he should be very proud of himself. So few people, particularly on these shows, are able to do that. I mean, just imagine JP saying something like this and how far he is potentially from it. Although, I don't know. The more I think about JP, because I sort of forgot, because based on the way he was in person with Taylor, it erased that whole memory of him in the pods where he was one of the most vulnerable people in the pods. Remember that? So I don't understand. But anyway, he should be very proud of himself. And I recently was talking with Umberto, my friend and co-host on this podcast, and he was telling me a similar story about this, how he had done this with his wife. And I told him just how proud I was, and I commended him. It's such a hard thing to do. I think I said, that's some real advanced shit you did there. It is. There are people who will never do that. They will never know or be able to do even once what he just did, even though what he did is healthy and likely to be needed every week or more, depending on the circumstance, maybe less, but it is a very frequent thing that we are hurt by our partners or by our friends or by our coworkers or by our parents or by our kids. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like the pinnacle of health, although the outcome worked, so what do I know? He knows her better than I would. But point is that he should be proud of himself, yeah. And you should be proud of yourself. Every time that you've done this, I am proud of you. Truly, I am. You are, one relationship at a time, one hurt feeling at a time. You are making a positive difference through your vulnerability. All right, that does it for that episode. Tune in next time when I continue watching, and everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.